Hi, Kent here. I've just arrived in Croatia. It's my first trip to the Balkans. I'm here to see what God's doing in church planting. Tomorrow I visit my first church. I can't wait to see what I find out. Behind me you see the evangelical church here in Dubrava. It's the only evangelical church in East Zagreb. The only church for 250,000 people. And because they've had Jesus come in and touch them, and people have been saved here, they're concerned about the fact that if you drive that way east, you have to drive 40 kilometers before you come to another evangelical church. So they have a concern, and they actually want to plant two churches between here and there in nearby towns. This church, it's only 5 years old. I think that's exciting. What's behind me here is the just about a year old, actually less than that, church plant in Novi Marov. Today, since this morning, I've been to 3 different parts of Croatia around Zagreb. Actually, I'm standing in the snow. It's cold. Tell you what, I'll tell you about it when I get back inside. Have I had a busy day? First, visited a church in Varazdin where there's about 60 people meeting together in a relatively established church, but a church with a lot of mission vision. Not only is their church going, but they've already about a year ago planted a church in a town called Novi Marov. That church has about 8 Christians attending already. They've baptized 3 people. They have about 18 non-Christians that are attending from time to time. That's not enough. They're also renovating a room in a building in another town, which they're going to plant a church into. Got about 10 people in that town potentially interested and ready to be invited in. And if that's not enough, they have a vision to go do that in 3 more towns. They're just praying for exactly where and exactly when to do it. It's almost 7 a.m. We're getting ready to head off for Bosnia. I'll give you an update as we go along. Well, I'm in Bosnia now. It's a little different than Croatia. Croatia has about 4 million people, but only about 8,000 Christians, evangelical Christians. Bosnia, on the other hand, while it has 4 million people, only has about 500 evangelical Christians. I've spent the afternoon talking to a very dedicated Bosnian couple who've been working for the Lord here for decades. The most amazing thing I heard from him is that he literally has taken gospel literature to every home in Bosnia twice. Well, actually, that's not quite true. He hasn't been to every home. He didn't manage to go to the homes in the areas that are still mined. Welcome to Serbia. I've crossed yet another border. No news today, though, I'm afraid. It's going to basically take 9 hours to do the trip between Bosnia and where I end up in Serbia. But I'll check back in with you tomorrow. Serbia. I've been meeting with a man and his wife who have planted over the years 5 churches. One phrase he used that really quite grabbed me was that pretty much the parents of every single convert that he's made have come back and persecuted him. He's talked about one man who was so upset about his son becoming a Christian that the man came and actually pointed a pistol at his chest. Traveling again.
That's what.
Well, you've heard a lot from me. I'd like you to have a chance to hear from the man I've been traveling with. He's got an exciting vision.
Hello, I'm Stephen Bell with European Christian Mission. I've been working here in the Balkans these last 25 years. Often in the Balkans it's quite difficult to start churches. You see some faithful people here and there, and it often goes slowly. But we've been felt that God wants perhaps to bring a new way here. We've identified 3 zones. Here there's some very faithful pastors, and they have been working years. And for example, in Varaždin, they already started 2 new churches from a 12-year-old church already, and they're looking at 3 more. In Bosnia, they've got a plan for 4 more churches. Here in Zagreb, we want to do 2 more churches. We've seen fruit. But what God is putting in front of us now is a possibility that from revival countries in Brazil and in Ukraine, 12 short-termers could come, 4 in each place, to really help speed the process. We've just talked with the pastors these last 3 days in these 2 countries, and they're excited and they're expectant and they're looking for God to change their situation, that even in 5 years they can see a lot of their visions come into reality.
So what have I learned from this trip? First off, the Balkans has great food and warm people. But secondly, as you can see, it can get awfully cold here. It's not been bad on my trip, but I've heard about it getting down to -20 and actually a lot worse. Thirdly, the distances between things here can be incredibly long. You've seen that on my trip. But it's not just the distances. It's the fact there's not many Christians. And we drove through town after town after town without a single evangelical church. But in the midst of that, God is at work here. He's rising up Christians and churches that have a vision to reach out and plant churches in these towns. I look forward to my next visit to see what he's done.